Hey everybody, I'm Chris with Wandering Hewitts, and today we're going to review the Carnival Sunrise. Now, some people say that this ship is too crowded and that the lines are endless. Some even say it smells like a sewer. I've read the reviews claiming that the Carnival Sunrise isn't really a vacation, that it's a total logistical nightmare. But was it really that bad? I just spent 5 days aboard the Sunrise, sailing to Nassau, Princess Cays, and the new Celebration Key to find out for myself. I wanted to know if the crowds and the waiting ruined the experience or if the price makes it all worth it. I'm going to be honest, there were moments on this trip where it definitely felt like a nightmare, but also there were moments that felt absolutely perfect. So let's break it all down, the good, the bad, and the chaotic. Now, I went into this one with a pretty open mind. I was looking for a fun, budget-friendly getaway, and Carnival's fun ship reputation seemed like it would hit the spot. My goal here was simple, to give you a real, unfiltered look at the cruise. No sugarcoating, just the honest truth to help you figure out if this is the right vacation for you. And hey, if you find it helpful, do me a solid and hit that like and subscribe button for more honest travel reviews, because it really does help the channel out. Now, for those who don't know, this ship used to be the Carnival Triumph. You know, that famous poop cruise documentary that Netflix had on and millions of people watched before the $200 million renovation transformed it into the Carnival Sunrise. It's a Sunshine class ship, which means it packs a lot of the newer Fun Ship 2.0 features onto a slightly smaller, older hull. It was built in 1999, holds about 3,000 passengers and about 1,100 crew. All right, so let's start out with some positives because honestly, there was a lot to love. The first thing we'll look at is the service. Now, despite how busy this ship was, the service was outstanding. From my room steward, Arnold, who kept my cabin spotless, shout out Arnold, to the bartenders who I had some great conversations with, and the waitstaff in the main dining room who were always attentive and friendly. The staff were always working incredibly hard and treated me and others very well. You really get that fun ship energy from them, and they always looked like they were having fun doing their job. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is the food. And I know food is subjective, but Carnival's casual dining spots are still hard to beat. You've got Guy's Burger Joint, which is consistent with juicy burgers. You've got the Blue Iguana Cantina for breakfast burritos, which is your go-to if you want to avoid those buffet lines in the morning. And honestly, pizza at Pizza del Capitano had some really good pizza in the evenings. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed a couple of my lunches at the Artesian Deli, which is located within the buffet area. And then there's Pig and Anchor, which I had on my first day, which had some really good barbecue, macaroni and cheese, and so on. Also, in the main dining room, I did have a few really good dinners, including braised short ribs and chicken parmesan. Next thing we're going to talk about is the entertainment. Now, when it comes to keeping you entertained, Carnival does not mess around. I was seriously impressed by the quality of some of the shows. The main theater production, there was a show called Spellbound, which was spectacular. We're talking Broadway-level vocalists, incredible dancing, and a story that kind of weaves together the classical R&B hits in a really clever kind of way. It had a cool gothic kind of vibe mixed in with songs from legends like Aretha Franklin and Stevie Wonder, and it sounds a little bit weird, but somehow it just all worked. Beyond the main stage, the Punchliner Comedy Club was a nightly ritual for me. They had multiple comedians with both family-friendly and adult-only sets. And these were not amateurs. They were pros who knew how to work a room. They had one comedian named Rafi Gonzalez who gave insights to growing up, along with some great crowd work. The other comedian was Russ Nagel, who was also very funny. I was laughing until my sides hurt every single night I went to these shows. Now, having that level of entertainment included in your fare is just an incredible value. Okay, so now we're going to talk about all the nonstop fun ship activities that took place. Now, they really do live up to the fun ship name. There was always something going on. The deck parties were electric with the music pumping and everyone dancing, like at the 80s Rock and Glow Party and the White Party. There was genuinely never a boring moment on board. The water slides at Carnival's waterworks were a huge hit, and kids and adults alike both had a blast going down. There's always trivia games like the Deal or No Deal and the classic rock trivia, which I took part in, and the goofy poolside contests that were always happening. What I really appreciated was the variety. If you've ever been on a Carnival ship in the past, you would know that they have an ice carving on the Lido deck. It was fun to watch a block of ice get turned into something extraordinary in under 10 minutes. Now, if you wanted to find a quiet spot up in a corner and read a book, you could go up to the Serenity deck. That ship is built for people who want to have a good time, and this absolutely delivered. Now we're going to look at the overall value of this cruise. For this cruise, I paid about $450 for a single occupancy room. Now this did include an upgrade to me that cost about $30 extra to try out this flex solo type room versus a traditional interior room. Now, if you look online right now, this cruise starts in the mid 200 range for this same itinerary, depending on your sailing dates. So overall, for a 5-day cruise, this was a pretty good value. Not great, but good. Now, if you can snag this for in that $200 range, all of a sudden it becomes a really good value. So it all depends on your dates of sailing, but check them out. There are some good values out there. Now we're going to start talking about some of the cons. Now, for the other side of the coin, the fun ship can also often feel like a full ship. My biggest frustration was dealing with the constant crowds. This was most obvious on sea days, on the Lido deck, for instance. The Lido buffet often felt chaotic, and finding a table was kind of like a competition sport in the morning, especially on those port days. The amazing Guy's Burger I just raved about, get ready to potentially wait up to 20 minutes in a line during lunch rush. The pools and hot tubs were often very full on sea days, making it tough to find a spot to just chill. While the energy of a full ship is part of the fun, it also means you're spending a good chunk of your vacation just waiting around. It's a trade-off for a popular, budget-friendly cruise, but it definitely wore on my patience. The second thing we'll talk about is the confusing layout on some of the decks of the ship. So navigating the Carnival Sunrise was oftentimes like trying to solve a puzzle and not a fun one. The layout on decks 3 and 4 and a couple of those top decks just didn't flow well. The main problem on decks 3 and 4 is that they are sliced in half by the Radiance main dining room restaurant. This means you can't walk from the front of the ship to the back on those floors. To get to the Sunshine main dining room all the way in the back of the ship, for example, I figured out the best way was for me to go down to deck 2 and just walk all the way to the back of the ship and then go up one flight of stairs. It makes no sense, and even after 5 days, I was still occasionally getting turned around on deck 4, for example. One night, they had the doors closed off to get to the Limelight Lounge, and literally the only way I found to get there was the midship elevators, which were kind of tucked in behind the casino. It's a well-known quirk of this ship class, but it's a daily annoyance. So the third thing we're going to talk about is a disappointing Sea Day Brunch. While the casual food options were a major win in my opinion, the much-hyped Sea Day Brunch in the main dining room to me was a total letdown. I was so excited for a nice, relaxing brunch on a sea day, but the reality was it was painfully slow service and lukewarm, mediocre food. From the moment I sat down, I felt like we were in slow motion the entire time. It took forever to get a cup of coffee and have my order taken, and even longer for the food to show up. It felt like the kitchen and the staff were completely overwhelmed, even though it wasn't that busy. Now, I heard other passengers saying the same thing. So it's a real shame because the idea is great, but the execution was so poor that it just felt like a waste of time, and I was there for well over an hour. The food when it came was even on the cold side. So frankly, you'd probably be better off just skipping this and either eating in the buffet, which honestly had almost the same food, or better yet, trying one of those auxiliary food options that oftentimes have omelet stations and other breakfast options. As a side note, even some of the dinner options in the main dining room were hit and miss. Some were great, as I explained before. as others were not so. Like my beef brisket that I had was on the tough side, and the prime rib I had, once it started to cool off, was tough and stringy. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a complete lack of seating. If you wanted to see some popular shows, you had to be prepared to fight for your seat or get there 30 plus minutes early. This was especially true at the Punchliner Comedy Club and the karaoke. The venue is just way too small for how many people want to go. If a show started at 8:30, you better be in line a half an hour early or you would be standing. I saw dozens of people having to stand during the comedy shows every single night. This creates a stressful vibe, and you have to plan your whole evening around snagging a seat instead of just deciding to see a show after dinner. It kills the spontaneous fun that a cruise ship is supposed to have. And the last thing we'll talk about on this is the ship's age, and it's showing it. Even with the huge $200 million refurbishment in 2019, you can't hide everything. Yes, this is the famous ship you may have seen on Netflix specials, but it was refurbished along with the name change. At its core, this is a ship that's well over 2 decades old, and you can feel it. Now, the transformation did add a lot of great new spots, but it kind of feels like a heavy facelift and not a reconstruction. In some hallways and stairwells, you'll see worn carpet spots and dated fixtures that didn't get the update. Some of the areas, like the Serenity area, was split into multiple areas, and it doesn't even have its own pool. Now, my cabin, while clean and in good condition overall, did feel a bit dated, and the furniture and design was stuck a little bit in the early 2000s. It's not a deal breaker, and the ship is kept incredibly clean, but it just doesn't have that fresh, seamless feel of a newer vessel. You just have to know you're not getting a brand new ship. Now, there's one final thing that wasn't really a positive or a negative and was more of that neutral issue, and that was the express dining option. Now, it's designed to get you in and out of the dining room faster than traditional dining room service. Now, in my experience, it really didn't shave off that much time. I had the anytime dining option, and I felt like it still took about an hour to eat all 3 courses. Now, some of that could be on me, as it took longer to eat an entree 1 or 2 nights, but I really don't think it saves that much time. They said that they're kind of rolling this out on some select ships to try out, and if I had to guess, I would say it maybe shaved off about 10 minutes, give or take. So the big question, going back to the beginning, was the Carnival Sunrise a total nightmare? No, it wasn't. While the ship had a confusing layout on a few of its decks, and it's starting to show its age, and the lines and the waiting were frustrating, the incredible service overall from the crew, the tasty food at Guys, Pig and Anchor, and other spots, the fantastic entertainment and activities did make it for an overall fun cruise. So if you're a solo traveler, a young couple, or a family on a budget looking for a high-energy party atmosphere and care more about endless activities and great shows than you do long lines, then the Sunrise can be a tremendous value and you will have an absolute blast. Being that this was a 5-day cruise, it wasn't as rowdy of a crowd as when we were on the Carnival Conquest for a 3-day booze cruise this past summer. Now, if you're interested in what that cruise was like, I'll leave a link down in the description below. On the other side of the coin, if you're looking for a quiet and spacious and luxurious escape, and if crowds and planning your night around getting a seat for a show sounds like a nightmare to you, I'd suggest looking at other cruise lines or maybe one of Carnival's newer and larger ships. So the Carnival Sunrise does deliver on its fun ship promise, for better or worse. Now, have you been on the Sunrise, or are you thinking of trying the Sunrise? What did you love or hate? Drop a comment down below, because I'd love to hear what your thoughts are or your experience on this ship has been. And thanks for watching, and have a great day.